I'm George Galloway, and I present Kalima Hurra on Almayadeen television. Here we are in London. I speak my words freely, either in Parliament, on television, here on the streets of London. Kalima Hurra means free word. That's what I speak. So Kalima Hurra is a two-way conversation. Check it out on Almayadeen television. Welcome to Kalima Hurra with me, George Galloway, on Almayadeen television, coming to you from London with, as always, an audience of distinguished experts and one or two enthusiastic amateurs like me. We're discussing the crisis in the Gulf. Once upon a time, people thought that crisis in the Gulf might just mean a bit of a contretemps between the tiny emirates in what was once upon a time Arabia. But now, the crisis in the Gulf has as its epicenter the slaughter of Yemen. Yemen is being massacred in front of our eyes. Well, in front of our eyes if we have access to the very few televisions that are showing what is actually happening there. There is famine, starvation, a cholera epidemic. People are dying like flies. And when they're not dying like flies, they're being killed on the streets. The Saudi-led coalition, though in fact it's an American-led coalition, armed by the United States and Britain and coordinated in a command and control cell by British and American officers. When I was a young man just getting into my anti-imperialist stride, the sight of British soldiers shooting down people in Aden in the streets was one of my earliest and most forming of experiences. The British never really went away, or at least they are back. But the Americans are pulling the strings, no doubt with some advice from the new Saudi friend in Tel Aviv, or is it these days in Jerusalem? Occupied, all of it in any case. The reality is, though, that the Yemen imbroglio, this bloody imbroglio, is only a part of the crisis in the Gulf. The contretemps to which I referred earlier is no joke. The demand that Al Jazeera television be closed down to please the princes in Saudi Arabia and elsewhere in the Gulf was just one of the issues. The economic sanctions, the blockade, in fact, that has been placed around the tiny principality of Qatar is now having a very serious economic effect. The poison that has been unleashed by this unprecedented level of aggression against one of the members, I remind you, of the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, is itself just one of the issues. The ongoing crushing of the democracy movement in Bahrain is another. The attempts by the ruling families in Gulf countries, and that's what they are, ruling families, every bit as much as the Kim family in North Korea, which everyone jokes about. These are all ruling families. Their determination to crack down and crush any and all opposition to them inside their own tiny countries with their tiny populations is also ongoing. The branding and labeling of any opposition according to the prevailing winds of the time. All the while, the Western countries pick their pockets, pick the pockets of their people, the wealth that should be being used to invest for the future once oil is a distant memory. The attempts to build public infrastructure and other economic means of earning a living in the future are being entirely sacrificed to pay what is effectively protection money. Protection money to the US in particular, but also to Britain and France to a lesser degree. that if you continue to keep us in power, we'll allow you a share of our loot, and an ever-increasing share. It has many ways in which this is done, but the most significant in this story is the purchase of ever more expensive and ever more deadly Western weapons. It's a great pity. The Gulf is a very precious place. It contains the country which is the custodian of the two holy mosques, the two most important places in the religion of Islam, itself a religion with 2 billion adherents around the world. What happens there is of far greater moment than would be suggested by the smallness of the populations. So where is it all going to end? As I speak, there's a full-scale battle going on in Hodeidah in Yemen for control of the port, the airport. That battle is not yet finished, but the price being paid by the invaders and would-be occupiers is certainly high. What attitude will the neighboring countries take if this slaughter continues in its current form? If Saudi Arabia steps up the aggression against Qatar, steps 1 foot inside the border of Qatar, which it, of course, covets for itself, what will the attitude of Iran be? What will the attitude of Turkey be? What will the attitude of the United States be, given that the United States has its biggest military base in the world in the desert in Qatar?